In this video, I'm going over the process of scanning my entire photo video archive. It's around 22 terabytes with ACDSee Photo Studio Ultimate 2026. Just keep in mind they have sent me codes to this program in the past, but they have no relation to this video. I was curious to see how the AI keywords and the face detection would work with such a large archive, and it was quite the process. My goal here was trying to make it more of like a client-server situation rather than just on my main computer, because obviously scanning a lot of stuff is going to take a long time. I did find a way to make it work with some special software, so I'm going to start with that. The first piece of software is VNC. This is going to be your server on that computer, so it will allow you to connect from other computers to that one. You get access to the desktop, so it should be decently fast. It should function, basically allows me to connect to that computer, access ACDSee itself, or just do other things like move files over and such. But there are some quirks, especially to the file transfer, which I'll get to. Besides VNC, you're going to need some type of client application so you can access that remote desktop. And they have Remote Ripple. You can put that server on the computer with the archive, and then of course the Remote Ripple on your main computer. Another little detail that you'll probably want to set in your network is that you want to have that computer with ACDSee a fixed IP address. So you'll have to kind of learn a bit of networking to assign a static IP for that computer. That way, with your remote desktop software, you can just always have the same number associated with that computer. You don't have to change it. Again, if you have any questions about that, I could probably help a little bit in the comments, but this is just a bit of networking, and that's going to be specifically related to whatever router and things you use in your local network. After installing the remote desktop software on the client and the server, I did have another issue, and it relates to with screens. I do have a tiny little screen attached to that computer, so I can look at it locally and just do a little thing here and there without having to do the remote desktop stuff. But I don't want to have that screen always on and always running. You can also have a virtual display driver. I found an open source one that works just fine. I installed that thing. It was on GitHub. I'll put the link in the description and such. You can check it out. But that basically creates a fake screen where it will be able to be served to the client. Now that the computer is set up, I want to scan the photo archive. However, when I started that process, I ran into a lot of issues. I was getting the program running, but then it would crash after a few hours or whatever. And I was trying to figure out the issues, but it turns out it was most likely the computer's RAM, but you need a really, really stable computer to make this thing work. You can scan your RAM to verify that it's good. Even then, getting a fully stable computer, there is a chance that ACDSee will crash in this process. Once I got things stable, I think maybe once, maybe twice, I had an issue with the entire archive, so you will need to monitor it. Here's Remote Ripple, the client software. I already have my computer assigned with the specific IP address that I use locally for it. And you simply connect to it, and then I've got ACDSee running on this computer. I can use it like a normal computer, move things around. Yeah, it just works as you would expect, which is great. So if I do need to look at photos and stuff on there, I can easily pull this up, access them. Now, it's not going to be amazing quality-wise, but it should be good enough, and I can always copy over photos if I need to look at them in detail on my main computer. The first thing that I would do with this setup is to adjust the options a little bit so that it fully focuses on scanning the files of the archive. So go into Tools and Options. There is a face detection area. I have it enabled. I want the indexer to scan while browsing, automatically scan. And then you do have an option to adjust the level of detection. Also, there's the AI keywords area in the options. Have it enabled, let the indexer access it and use it and do it. Yeah, so while browsing also. Indexer option that you want to check out as well. So make sure it's running when it's idle. In this case, I have a single minute that I want it to start doing that. So it would quickly just start. In this case, I've got the 2 folders on my external drive assigned, so only those are being scanned. One thing to take note of with ACDSee in the Manage area is you have your Activity Manager on the side panel, so you can check that out and make sure those are running. So you get your AI keyword detection, the face detection. But before you let the indexer do its thing, I think it's a good idea to use the catalog feature. Otherwise, it's not going to find all the photos and videos in your archive, because it just, as far as I understand it, it's going to only scan what you look at in the program. So that's going to really not catch everything unless you just manually go through the entire archive and look at stuff. So you're going to go into tools, database, catalog files. You do have a bunch of options here. You can enable, of course, some of this is going to make things much slower depending on what you want to do. I don't do all of the thumbnail creation. It's really, really slow, and over 22 terabytes. I had tried it and it just didn't make any sense. And it doesn't actually do the face detection and AI keywords in this catalog process at all, as far as I can tell. So there's really no point to do thumbnail generation unless you really want to for some reason. And in my case, file formats, I wanted to look at images and videos. This specific version of ACDSee does more with video now. Doing that catalog process is a necessity in this case, just to make sure it finds everything, but then we let the indexer do its thing afterwards. With such a massive archive, it's going to be relatively slow accessing some of these features that compile information and stuff. Dedicating a fast computer with fast storage to this would be ideal, but yeah, it's another expense. In this case, I just needed to use what I had on hand to make it work. The most used camera, Canon EOS M50. I did have 2 of those at one point. And we've got the total number of cameras, 111. Nice number. Favorite ISO setting, ISO 100. Number of images and video files, 345,882. That honestly seems kind of low for how long I've been doing this. But, it is what it is. My favorite format is RAW, and also the resolution of the camera that I tend to use is around 24 megapixel. Still super cool to see all this information, see what I've managed over the years. Now there's the database one as well. Again, more information on what's going on. I will need to back up the database information, considering how long it took to scan all of this stuff. I do want to save that and make sure it's backed up. Even more information, we've got the camera summary. So the M50 is the one that I use the most. 50mm f1.8, most used focal length 50 millimeters. So that would make more sense on full frame, but I did use 50mm lenses on APS-C quite a bit as well. That makes sense. 1/100th of a second shutter speed and f2.8 for the aperture. That's kind of interesting. Then we've got different lenses we can look at. 51.8, my most common. The EFM 32mm f1.4 STM, so that was all the EFM equipment. I must have used that lens quite a bit. This one's interesting. 70 to 210 f4. That was the Nikon f-mount lens that I used on the DSLRs at the time. And then this one's really interesting. The focal length. We've got 0 to 50 millimeters. So it looks like my most used focal length range is 16 to 35. So maybe in the future, if I do want a zoom lens, 16 to 35 would be a good option for me. The Files sub-tab in the dashboard, you can see all the files, the resolution. So I mostly do 24 megapixel. That seems like a good compromise, and usually those cameras are more reasonably priced compared to anything with more megapixels to it. It's cool seeing all of the dashboard information and stats on what I did over the years with photo and video, but the main thing I wanted to check out was the AI keywords and the face detection. Let's start with the AI keywords and see what's available and what it found. Just getting a feel for that. One thing I did notice, obviously, with this program, as far as I can tell, there's no way to see a big list of the keywords that it found, so I'm kind of guessing at what might be in there to search on. You can go to the individual files and look at what it found, so you'll eventually get an idea of what's available, but yeah, it's kind of difficult. I wish ACDSee would add a feature to get a big list of all the AI keywords and the quantities of each one. You just search on AI. So you can see that's in the ACDSee metadata area. We've got AI keywords. We're going to add that to the list. Now, obviously, you can define other things like lens focal length or whatever you want to do. But in this case, if I just search on computer, it's a pretty simple one. I know exists in there. You can see this massive scroll bar of results in my case for the archive. I could see some old computers here. Definitely found a good amount. This looks correct. So some of these aren't quite right, but I mean, it's a good selection here. I could see results from the Vintage Computer Festival Midwest. Obviously, that's a lot of computers. So it found those, which is great. Use cases for this are huge. Just trying to find things that I'm looking for. If I want photo examples of a specific thing, I can search on it, and now I'm able to at least find a good selection of that specific thing. In this case, let's search for glasses. I have seen that as a keyword. So it's got a bunch of photos of me, and I am wearing glasses there. That's good. And it found a huge amount of results. Yeah, definitely found people with glasses. Really not bad. You could see it found glasses by themselves, not just on a person's face. Looks good. Let's say I want to search on cars. All right, searching on car clearly did find quite a few cars. Here we go. I don't know if that's a car, but I guess it counts. Found some highway stuff. Very cool. Just looking at a few simple AI keyword terms, you can see that there is a lot of potential with this. And with the massive archive, I just have a huge amount of results. You can limit the search terms, add additional parameters to it, just to narrow your focus on it, which is an option as well. But yeah, it just seems super useful into the future with this. Now onto the people tab. This has a huge amount of results. This will be a process to look through your archive and start naming people and tagging things. Clearly, I can see that it does pick up stuff that isn't technically a person, but is a person. So illustrations, things like that. I don't know if you want that, but it also picks up random things like lens caps. Now you can adjust your settings for face detection to limit that and then rescan, which I might do in the future. But that said, it definitely picked up a lot of people. The fastest way to look at it is unnamed and then ungrouped, but you can also group. The thing is, with the grouped, it does take some time to process. So you might be sitting there a while. From what I can tell, ACDSee doesn't save any type of caching data or whatever for this grouping process with the people tab. I have tried this before and let it run, and it does work, but clearly going back to it, it's doing a big, long scanning process again. And looking at my own computer, it's hitting 100% CPU utilization. So definitely, if you want to make this as viable as possible, use a really, really good CPU with it if it's a huge archive. As I'm filming this video, it took multiple minutes just to get into the grouping functionality for the people detection. It finally worked, so let's take a look. The people detection grouping feature definitely works. It is slow on this old CPU, so it's going to take multiple minutes to get into that area of the program, but it does work. I can see that it detects and groups things by photo shoot mostly, but it also does find people in a similar area, similar situation in different contexts. So for example, if I were to take photos at a sporting event, this found this specific person multiple times at that sporting event in different contexts. So that was great. It found them and it worked. Found me in different thumbnail images that were similar, but clearly it did take... It wasn't limited to the white background. It found the colored background ones as well. In summary, very fun project. The CPU is a major limitation of this setup for a lot of the features that I'm trying to use. So day to day, it is going to be a somewhat slow process to use for the people detection and use of that feature. The searching on AI keywords is decently fast. It's not quick by any means on this old computer, but it works. Both of them are functional enough that I can use. I don't know if I'm going to spend the time to start tagging a massive amount of people detection information with names and stuff, but that would be ideal. Definitely back up your database if you're going to spend the time trying to do that. The grouping feature does work, but it seems to group a little bit more on photo shoot or same situation rather than finding the person and knowing it's that one person. But it is decently functional. With this project, I wanted to fully separate the archive and just let that one computer access it and use it. In that case, I need to be able to transfer files over to it. Now, I can use this VNC stuff to transfer files, but it's really, really slow in my experience so far. So I'm just using Windows file sharing. That's pretty simple. It's decently easy to set up. I'm not going to go over the process of setting up Windows File Share, but it does work. And it's really going to depend on your network speed. In my case, I was getting maybe 50 to 100 megabytes a second, so it is slower than just being able to connect the drive to my main computer. But it's kind of decent enough that it's viable to use in practice. That was a fun process. I do think it is useful and viable for people to scan the archive with the software and actually use it, but the CPU will be a big limitation in this case. Anyways, hope you enjoyed the video. Scott Bonzai, thanks.